Olin, good morning. How you doing?
Doing good, guys. How are you guys?
All right.
We live the dream, and I got to tell you, I feel better this morning because the Bears won a game. I just feel like we finally saw something change, and I don't know if I'm more pleased that they actually won a game this year, or just beating the Packers has done it for me. Whatever it is, that was a very important thing to just end, just their dominance, the Matt LaFleur thing, I'm just delighted that they managed to beat the Green Bay Packers. I'm not one of these guys that believes that makes up for the horrors of the season, but it was just a good way to end it.
Yeah, it was a good way to end on a win. Losing streaks come to an end. Their losing streak, the losing streak against the Packers and Coach LaFleur. We know how the season went. We know how bad it was, but to see the young quarterback lead his team down the field again for the Bears to find a way to win. Been talking all year about how important it is to learn how to win football games. Some people agree with that, some people don't. I'm one who thinks that this Chicago Bears team, these guys keep talking about culture, finding ways to win football games. They finally won one with the kicker that I didn't think was going to get it high enough to get it through the uprights in 7-degree weather, but they do, right? Young quarterback, DJ Moore fumbles. The quarterback coach getting his face on the sideline. You wonder how he's going to respond to that. Why don't you just hand the ball off? Why are you popping the ball out to DJ Moore? He fumbles it, right? They come back, they drive down the field, get a personal foul. Quarterback works the pocket. They find a way to get that ball to DJ Moore, get it in range, kick that field goal, beat the Packers. Hopefully, it just feels better. Hopefully, to start to something better. But as we know with the Chicago Bears, we don't know where this organization is headed. I heard you guys talking already this morning. Here we are again at the end of the year on what they like to call Black Friday when coaches get fired.
Yeah.
The Chicago Bears, again, are trying to figure out, I know this sounds familiar, who to put in the building to get this franchise moving in the right direction. We'll see if the same guys can hire the right people.
We have similar questions, Olin, and I think the skepticism is appropriate. And the offseason, again, matters more than the season that just ended. I want to get your take on what's happened with Caleb Williams over the last week specifically. You referenced the Kerry Joseph sideline moment, which I thought was interesting that they captured on camera. He did get in his face. We heard from Chris Beatty last week talking about what Caleb has done with his footwork and how much he needs to improve. And it was pretty specific and I think direct criticism. And we heard from Thomas Brown, I think, throughout the week, be very critical of some things that Caleb Williams wasn't doing. Did that strike you as a change in the approach? How did you view all the things that were said by the people that coached Caleb Williams last week?
Yeah, and if you listen to the game, like a lot of people do, and you listen to Darryl Johnson, who gets to talk to the coaching staff, right? And he talked a lot about the way Thomas Brown felt about Caleb Williams' development and where he was and what he needs to work on. And I think one time he referenced how he's really emotional on the sideline, and he goes through like a monotone voice to try to keep him going. And just, they did a nice job, I thought, on the broadcast, showing you what Caleb did well and what he struggled with and what he needs to work on. But look, my rookie year, I had a lot to work on, right? Coming out of that season to get better, to learn what the NFL is about, right? And then what works and what doesn't work. And there were techniques I used all through college. The game sped up. The D linemen were bigger. They were smarter. They were faster. They were older. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew what their technique was. They knew what their skill was. These are all things that young players have to adjust to. But to your point, David, these coaches now are coming out, and I think they're on their last day, their last ride there at Hallis Hall, and they're just telling you what they think. And they think that Caleb needs to get better. And I'm sure if you ask them about a lot of players in that locker room, they would respond the same way, right? But of course, we want to talk about the young quarterback. We want to talk about what direction he's moving in. How can we do the best for him to get him to develop? Because as we all know, that usually equals consistent winning in the NFL. When you have a really good top-tier quarterback, just take a look at the playoffs. Take a look at the teams that are in the playoffs, the teams that are competing every year. They have that guy. They have the coaching staff. They have guys surrounding him. They have good football players around him, but they have that quarterback who gives you the chance to compete every game. And that's why you liked what you saw. We talked a lot about Ryan Poles talking about Caleb Williams, lean on your teammates this year. This was the plan a long time ago, right? In September, when they told us they had a good culture and a good football team, and we found out that was wrong. But Ryan Poles talked about at the end of the game, do the special. Caleb did the special a lot of times, but the team let him down, whether it be coaching decisions, whether it be guys not defending Hail Marys, whether it be field goals getting blocked. It was good to see him do the special and have the football team win the football game, even though for a lot of people that game didn't mean much yesterday.
You know, I thought you were on fire yesterday on the post game, Olin, and I really appreciated some of the thoughts you had specifically about the need for like kind of an older, wiser help within the football program. In other words, we're talking about a guy in Ryan Poles, a young guy who's kind of learning on the job, and his number one assistant is Ian Cunningham, who's like a contemporary of him. They're both young guys, and I know he'll be a hot candidate for a general manager's job, etc. But they do not have a lot of experience within the group up there. And, you know, David and I were even talking about it this morning, and the danger would be, well, you can't really bring in anyone over him because that's another layer. And that's not what you're talking about. You're just talking about a veteran scout type guy, just a voice in the building that has a different perspective than maybe a lot of these young guys that are bouncing things off each other.
Yeah, you have a lot of good young minds in there at Haugh Hall, right? And you maybe need an old school guy. And I'm just, from the outside looking in, you just take a look at what their front football operations looks like, right? And what do they have? And it hasn't worked, right? And then I do this crazy thing, guys. It's Google, right? And I say, man, I wonder what the good teams are doing, right? I wonder what the teams that are winning are doing. And just take a look at the Lions and the Ravens and teams that have a little consistency. I take a look at a team like the Ravens who've had a lot of consistency, right? And you take a look at the way they built their football operations. Ozzie Newsome still sits there every day in meetings and talks to people, and he's just someone you can bounce things off of. And I just think the Chicago Bears didn't put enough football guys in their building, older type guys who have built teams, and even guys who have been around Chicago for a long time. Because as we know, guys, it's different winning in Chicago than it is in other cities, as it is different winning in Detroit than it is winning in Chicago. And that's what the guys up there at Haugh Hall have to figure out. And it's just looking at your history, being honest with yourself of what wins here, what doesn't, what has actually worked here before. And that's why I was always knocking so hard on drafting offensive linemen. And people think, well, it's because you were an offensive lineman. They're right. And I think it's an important position. And I think you build your team from the football out. But just take a look at every time the Bears have won, guys. They have good offensive lines. They have good defensive lines. They have guys who protect the quarterback and attack the quarterback. And it just seems like to me when I was watching them make decisions through this process that the Chicago Bears, the guys up there at Haugh Hall, were ignoring their history. They're ignoring what works and what hasn't worked. And they were just making the same decisions over and over again that don't work. So you get an older guy in there that says, okay, guys, hold up a little bit. Little old school guy, let's do it this way. Doesn't mean he's always right. It just means you have that opinion in your building, a guy who has built teams before. Bill Belichick said it on the McAfee show,
yes.
Right? I mean, it seems obvious, but for some reason, they're not doing it up there, right? For some reason, it's like, well, let's talk about Ryan Bates. Let's talk about Nate Davis. Let's talk about why we're not drafting offensive linemen instead of cornerbacks, right? Let's talk about why we're not taking right tackle instead of Velus Jones. Let's just talk about these things as we go through the process of someone else, like you're saying, Mully, an older guy, a guy there just to help them out. And that's the same on coaching staffs, right? The last time the Bears won here in 2018, they had Vic Fangio in the building helping out Coach Nagy, right? And Vic Fangio, we know, highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL. The Chicago Bears, guys, if you look at their history, it's they put linemen in the building, and they've had a lot of good football coaches on their coaching staff, but that is a lot of teams that win football games. 2006, guys, Ron Rivera, Lovie Smith, just a few names, right? Just Ron Turner, Harry Hiestand, just a few names of football guys in the building. All these people helping the Chicago Bears win football games. They have to take a good look at that. And then you start losing coaches during the season, and you wonder to yourself, man, why are we losing so much football games? And I'm wondering, how do you not know how you're losing so many football games?
Great question. And I think that guy who is the ultimate football guy could still be the head coach. You could still hire somebody who fills that role and is the ultimate decision maker, ultimate guide, and the guy who points the direction. We're getting a report, Olin. Mike Silver from The Athletic says that the Bears have expressed interest in Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, who is a former head coach. We hear him linked to Anthony Weaver. To me, it's kind of underwhelming. I don't know that this list is going to get, as it expands, any more impressive. But I hope that it does. If you were putting a list together, or at least a criteria of what you're looking for in the next head coach for the Bears, where would you start in terms of describing it?
You want to find the best coach, and like you're talking about, the guy who is the football guy and the guy who understands, who speaks the language of winning in Chicago, right? Who says to me things that I want to hear about the way he's going to build his football team, the staff he's going to put around him, the culture he's going to put into Haugh Show. By that I mean, guys, who's your strength staff, right? Who's your coach in the weight room? Who is your offensive coordinator? Who is your defense coordinator? What do you think about my football team? What do you think about getting Caleb Williams effective on first and second downs through the first 3 quarters of the football game? How can I get my pass rush going, right? How can I stop the run? What do you think about when you look at my football team? We look at the personnel, when you look at nutrition, developing Darnell Wright, developing Braxton Jones, getting Cole Kmet back moving in the right direction. How do I get my $110 million wide receiver, DJ Moore, moving? How do I get Jalen Johnson? What do I do about Brisker? What do you about your thoughts about getting Brisker back on the football field, guys with concussion? Because guys, like, the head football coach handles all that. David, you make a great point. He's not just the coach of the football team. He handles nutrition. He handles travel. He handles how we ride on the bus. He handles how we sit in the locker room. He handles what we eat for dinner, what we eat for breakfast. He does all those things. You're not just a football coach anymore. And you have to be able to handle all that when you create culture. And I think a lot of times when you see it all fall apart, when you talk about infrastructure at Haugh Show, that's what you're trying to define, right? The people at Haugh Show have to define why they're losing so many football games, right? It's not just one guy. He's going to come in here and fix your building. I promise you, I've been here too long. You can't find the perfect guy to do it. They have to fix their building, guys. They have to decide. Stop talking to me about your head coach and your culture. Define for me what's been broken for so long. Why can't you get it moving in the right direction? I'm not talking about the guy you're going to bring in. One guy's not going to fix all of it. All the guys hiring him are still going to be there, still be part of the culture, still be part of getting this thing moving in the right direction. Our football players, the most important people in our building, is winning football games, the most important thing in our building for everybody.
I'm curious when you see someone like Zach Pickens, and I understand that I get caught up in this kind of thing, but you get to the end of the year and you're thinking about development and who plays and who doesn't play. He apparently lost his job in practice. I don't know how else to, or maybe there's some issue going on, but for that guy to be a healthy scratch for the final couple games of the year, isn't that a guy that that's Velus Jones stuff. That's a guy who's a 3rd round pick that now you choose. You'd rather have him not play than on the active roster. It's weird.
Yeah, Mully, you said people think you get caught up in those things. Those are the things people need to get caught up in if they want to get moving in the right direction. Why aren't our football players developing? A great question for Ryan Poles, from Kevin Warren, or anybody. Who has developed under your watch? What have we done for guys like Zach Pickens, Javon Dexter? What happened to the Tremaine Edmonds from Buffalo, right? Why is Jalen Johnson the only one playing good football? What is he doing different than everybody else here? Darnell Wright had a knee brace on. He's getting a little bit better. Why does Braxton Jones have all these injuries? These young Cole Kmet, why has he taken a step back, right? Why aren't our football players developing? Because, guys, very simply, get football players to develop in the top 10 in the NFL at their position. And guess what magically happens? You start to win football games, right? So you're actually talking about, Mully, what people need to be talking about. They're talking about the coach. Oh, we got to get the head coach. Man, I've seen a lot of head coaches come through here and not be successful, right? They have a lot to fix up there at Haugh Show. I hope they get to it. I hope they finally sit down and flush out what the problem with their football team has been through all these years and recognize winning football games, what it means, how to do it, how to define it, how do we get moving in that direction. Stop talking to me about a culture you can't even define. What culture do you want here? What culture wins in Haugh Show? What culture wins in Chicago? What happens? We don't, hey, Ryan, I'm sorry, man. We don't have Andy Reid, Dave Toll, and Steve Spagnuolo there. The best coaching staff in the NFL. We don't have Holmes. How are you going to win football games in Chicago?
It's a great point, Olin. It's great passion. And I think that if you felt that passion coming from Haugh Show, a lot of Bears fans would feel better about the direction they're headed. So I think directly asking you, do you think that Ryan Poles is the right man to chart the course for this head coaching search? And how confident are you that they can find the right head coach as they begin, I guess, the search officially today?
No, of course not. Of course, not what I've watched the last 3 years, not what I've watched the last 12 years. No, you're not very confident in all those guys at Hallasaw, but you are hoping they prove you wrong, right? You are hoping that they're saying, he's young, he's learning. I told a little story on a post-game show last night that I was talking to somebody up there at Hallasaw when they were making the same decision on Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. The only thing I told him was this. I said, look, it may be time to move on from them, start all over like we're talking about. Try to do it the right way, draft a quarterback, let the general manager hire the coach. Do that once in your guys' life, right? And the same thing was coming out that they thought Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were getting better at their jobs. And I said, yes, but if you're wrong, you're going to set this franchise back about 10 years, right? So that's what the process they're going through right now of figuring out, has Ryan Poles learned? And that is the job of the guys above him to figure out what is his plan. Make him define it for you. Make him define the coach. Make him define what he actually thinks went wrong with the football team. But if you're asking me very simply, do I have any faith in the guys up who I just watched go through 3 years developing football players, watch this building fall apart, watch them have to fire 2 coaches, watch them hire an offensive coordinator, have to fire him in season, watch the team call the head coach out when they talk to me about culture, watch the players couldn't stop talking, right? Even when things are going wrong, they can't be quiet and just play football. They can't just worry about themselves, right? Which is what you do when you're losing football games. So watch that from the outside looking in, looking for leadership, David and Mully, looking for someone to walk downstairs and say, guys, be quiet and play football. Say the right things. Don't worry about anybody else's job. I laugh when I hear players talk about what kind of coach they need. You want to know why I laugh? When I was in my 20s, I had no idea. It was so hard to play center. It was so hard to work on me developing my football game that I couldn't worry about that. They have to worry about that stuff, right? So it's just when you watch them, you ask me if I have confidence in what they're doing up there with the guys in that building. No. How can anybody have any confidence in the direction they're moving in to make the right decision? Hopeful, yes. Hopefully they get it right. Thinking they will, probably not.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I told David, I just don't have faith in this group, and I that's because I've been to the sausage factory. I have looked under the hood of the car. There's a problem. There is a fundamental issue that is there. That there's a reason you keep kind of repeating mistakes, and when you think about Ryan Poles, and I try not to ask for anyone's job or anything like that, and I know they're going to keep him. But Olin, that the biggest decision they had to make was the coordinator for the quarterback, and they got it wrong. And then they promoted a guy who they had interviewed, and maybe that's okay. Then they fire the coach, and then they promote him again. It's not Thomas Brown's fault that he took the jobs that were offered, but you left yourself vulnerable by not only we loaded him up, and look, he's doing well. Let's throw more on his play. It just seems insane to me.
You make all good points, man. And congratulations. I didn't get a chance. I said it last night, but congratulations, Thomas Brown, man. It's a big win in Green Bay, right? Gets his first win as a head coach. And like you're saying, they gave him a lot. And credit to him. He showed everybody that to give him a chance, it means you're working hard up there at Hallasaw. Means a lot of people believe in the job that you're doing. But the guy went from pass game coordinator. Basically means, guys, for the listeners, is he's not even in a room coaching anybody most of the day, right? There's a quarterback coach, a wide receiver coach, an O-line coach, a tight end coach, and they're doing most of the coaching. The pass game coordinator, as the young quarterback told you, we haven't talked much, right, when he got the OC job, which doesn't surprise me because pass game coordinator just kind of a title. You're doing a lot of work on the side, and it just, credit to him for looking so good at that job that they gave him the OC job, then he did so good there, and they gave him the head coaching job, right? And look, it's just like you're saying,
everybody's promoted.
It's just crazy, man, David. It's just, and you're sitting there asking me, do I have faith in the direction they're moving in after what I just watched? And it's hard for me to say yes. And like you're saying, Mully, I was in NFL buildings. I know a lot of coaches, as you guys know. I know the job they're doing, how hard it is to listen to someone like me on the radio rant and rave about what you're doing up there at Hallasaw. And they all say the same thing, right? These guys only present problems. They don't present solutions. And all these things they say. Hallasaw, man, Thomas Brown's not the problem. Coach Eberflus, keeping him was the problem, right? You have to fire your head coach and your OC midseason. These are the same guys telling us, don't worry, guys. We figured it all out. We're going to get it fixed.